How are local scientists reacting to this, and what does this mean for us in the future? Abby Oconee just interviewed one of our area's experts, and this is what he had to say. I want to bring in Dr. Harold Tobin, the director of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. Harold, it's always great to talk to you. We talked yesterday, and I wanted to kind of just ask Harold a couple of questions about how this event went down. I mean, what kind of conditions did we see? What's the recap from what we saw yesterday?
Yeah, good morning, Abby. The event yesterday was actually, historic and unprecedented. I'm not sure people realize quite how unusual it was. We have never had one of the tsunami alerts for the Pacific go off from a volcanic eruption as opposed to an earthquake. There's been some sort of alerting system for 70 years, and this is the very first time for a volcano. That actually made the Tsunami Warning Center folks at NOAA have to scramble a little bit to figure out how to issue the warning because they're used to doing one for an earthquake. But that eruption took place. The warning did go out, or the advisory for our coast, of course, warning for some regions on the other side of the Pacific. And we dodged the worst of it. No real damage here in Washington as far as I can see, but the water is actually still sloshing around out there from the tsunami. You can see it on the tide gauges for our entire coast and up in as far as Port Townsend.
Wow. Yesterday was really exciting, and something that I learned yesterday is that the forecast models for tsunamis are based upon earthquakes and not volcanoes. Is that right? And if so, what was it like, do you think, hoisting that advisory and realizing that we didn't quite know how it was going to pan out exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it was a really tough day for the folks in the Tsunami Warning Center. There's two of them, actually. One's in Hawaii and one's in Palmer, Alaska. And their job was to do it, but the way their bulletins work, the way their alerts work, is they have to enter an earthquake magnitude. No significant earthquake was detected initially for this, so they had to put in basically a dummy magnitude, a fake magnitude, in order for the bulletin to even go out, and that must have been tough for them. Initially, it said magnitude 0.1, which caused all of us to raise our eyebrows. Why do we see a tsunami alert for a 0.1 earthquake? But it was very clear it was the volcanic eruption, and so they went ahead with it and improvised, as people do in a tough situation.
Harold, how do you think that we did in terms of getting the alert out there? And when I say we, just the state with that advisory, how do you think we responded? Any learning lessons for the future when this kind of alert goes into effect?
Yeah, well, I think the news is mostly really good. Of course, people became very aware of the alert, and fortunately for an event so far away, we had many hours of advance warning. And of course, also the event itself wasn't hazardous in our state, so that was great. But it's pretty clear from what I've seen from news stories such as yours and others that lots of people still weren't aware of what was going on until much later in the day. So if it had been a more hazardous event, there would be some concern. And the other concern I just have is all the people who hear about it and rush down to the shoreline to see the wave come in, or think they're going to paddle out in it or surf in it or anything else. That's just really not a good idea. It was no big deal yesterday. That doesn't mean the next time it won't be a big deal.
Harold, thank you so much for your time. One last question I have for you. We have so many faults in our area and so many opportunities for earthquakes and the possibility for tsunamis. We understand the tsunami risk for the far Washington coast, but how vulnerable is Puget Sound to a devastating tsunami if the right earthquake struck our region?
Yeah, well, certainly the worst of the hazard is for the Pacific coast, but up in the Sound and into the whole Salish Sea region, there is the possibility of tsunami, and that comes from the big one offshore, which could still travel up into the Sound, and it's possible, especially up around, Bellingham to Everett region, that could have a significant impact, and maybe even as far south as Seattle down towards Tacoma. The other one is that we do have earthquake faults that we know exist right in the Sound and crossing the Sound waters as well as the lakes. And it's possible for a locally generated wave to happen. That's much less likely. Those are pretty, it seems very uncommon events, but it's one of the planning scenarios that we have to take into account.
Harold Tobin, Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, always a pleasure getting to talk to you. Thanks for joining us this morning.